Ah, Dizzy. He's a good guy. Good guy. In today's episode of Gears of War lore, I'm going to talk about his past and everything that kind of just led up to, Gears 2 when they introduced him. And his story is actually, very good. I actually totally forgot about his story, but the only reason why I even am doing this episode now is thanks to my friend Miguel. He randomly, suddenly decided that Dizzy will be his favorite character now, I guess. And, it got me thinking about him in his past. But anyways, Dizzy. Before the Locust, Emergence Day, Pendulum Wars, he was just like he worked on a boat. I talk more about it in my Emergence Day episode, so you can just refer to that episode as well. He just was a worker like on a boat, and he worked for, I believe, the cog, or he might have just been like a normal boat worker. But when E-Day happened, he immediately left work and he tried to get home. He kind of just left his job to try to get back to his wife and his stepson because he wanted to make sure they're okay, obviously. Long story short on that part, he just ended up, going to where he lived with them, and his stepson was a cog, and unfortunately he found out that his stepson died. On Emergence Day, his city was attacked badly, and his stepson got killed. He's a cog. They found his cog tags. He was gone. And then, unfortunately, soon after that, he found out that his wife, had passed away as well. The Locust killed her as well. And he was kind of inconsolable. He didn't really know how to deal with this. His whole world was turned upside down. His wife and his stepson, yeah, it's his stepson, but I'm pretty sure he cared a lot about him. They were gone. And he just kept doing, just work and jobs and just stuff like that. And he ended up being like a person that helped remove rubble and stuff of cities that were demolished. And he also came across like dead bodies, and one time they lifted up a bunch of rubble and they found like two dead bodies. He helped bury them and stuff because he felt like he kind of needed to do that to kind of like give him a closure since his stepson and his wife passed away. And but the thing that was really crazy is that day, he was really obsessed with doing that type of job, removing the rubble and burying bodies. And the crazy part was when he was doing this, he ended up meeting his second wife. What happened was when he was removing the rubble, taking care of the area, he could hear a woman screaming, and she was trapped on the rubble, but she was fine. They got her out. She was fine. She was safe. And he kind of just like, well, it's a new girl, and he's glad that they saved her. And immediately she asked, are the locusts around? They're like, oh no, they're not around anymore. And she was relieved, and he kind of took care of her, and he ended up falling in love with her, and she ended up becoming his new wife. And he they were together, and he got her pregnant. And the real crazy part was before the Hammer of Dawn, they just lived like in another this little town. But when the Hammer of Dawn strikes was announced, the whole world's going crazy. Just refer to my Emergence Day episode for that too. They're going crazy, and they're trying to figure out how can they get to Jacinto in time to save his wife and his unborn child because she's pregnant. But then that thing that was really crazy is they tried to get like on a train. They tried to get tickets to go on a train. The train was too packed. They didn't let him. He was freaking out. He didn't know what to do. And to top it off, his wife tells him, "I don't think it's just one baby. I think it's two babies. Twins run in my family." So he's just like, oh my gosh, this is even more of a reason to try to save my wife now. I got a wife and two kids on the way. So he, poor guy, he's stressed out for trying to figure it out. But he didn't know what to do. And he left his town because he knew that it was gonna happen. Like a lot of people are skeptical, it's not it's not gonna happen. They're just saying that. No, he didn't believe that for a second. He left. He started walking from his town all the way trying to get to Jacinto on time, but only like a few hours from the hammer strikes were about to hit. They were barely out of like the borders of that area near Jacinto and stuff. Tyrus, really far out. They didn't have nowhere of the amount of time they needed to make it to Jacinto. And they're freaking out. They didn't know what to do. So that they're trying to run and run. And his wife kind of just gave up, and she's like, just forget it. We're gonna die. And he's like, no, we're not. I'm not gonna let you die. I'm not giving up. And he found a car, and he took her in the car, and they drove for a while. But even with the car, they weren't gonna make it in time because they only had like an hour or so, and they're really far away. So they ended up at a looted store. They end up in a looted store. They trying to find cover basically, and they try to go in there and they find food, water, whatever, and they're out of time. It's only minutes away from the hammer strikes, so they decide to hide in like the back room, the store, storage room in the back of the store. And his wife's all scared, and she's like, I need to get water, because water's going to be very important at something like that. Once the hammer strikes and everything's destroyed, they're going to need water. So she started filling up bottles, she filled up a freaking mop bucket and a freaking sink, and she was just trying to get as much water as she could to help make sure they had water, because water is very important. And they're hiding in the storeroom, waiting for this to happen, waiting for the hammers to come down. Hammer Dawn strikes coming down, and it finally happens. Boom! This whole sky is lit up. And the thing that was really crazy is that even though they were in the safe of the safety of the storeroom, Dizzy could see the lights coming through the door. The lights very bright through the door, even though it's like closed up and everything, and they're trying to block it out. The whole the lights coming through the door, and they're all scared. And he thinks he's gonna die. He thinks they're done. And nothing happens. Nothing. They hear crazy winds, they hear crazy explosions and stuff, but nothing happens to that little building that they're hiding in. Luckily, they decide to leave it. Once the Hammer Dawn strikes are done, and there's like, oh, happy, thank God, and they go outside. And well, Dizzy goes outside first by himself, and when he goes outside, he sees snow, and he's thinking, snow, this is summertime, why the heck is there snow? It's not snow. It was ash. Ash everywhere. Everywhere, all over the place. And the thing that really freaked him out was he looked out in the distance, and there was a city there before, and it was gone. The whole city just poof, gone. Entire big city just gone in like a few seconds. A few seconds of the hammer strikes, boom, the whole city's gone. After this, he became stranded. He became stranded after this because I think he didn't really have a high respect for the COG because of what they did and stuff, so he just became stranded. He didn't want to deal with all that. And the thing that was real crazy, 6 months later, his wife finally had kids, and she was right, it was twins. Two baby girls named Marilyn and Teresa, in that order. And, they're just, living out their lives as stranded, but unfortunately, they get attacked by locusts. It breaks up this whole little peaceful moment where they're all happy and just living out as stranded. And his wife says, she grabs a knife all quick. She's like, oh, they're not going to get my babies. They're little, they're still little tiny babies. They can't do nothing. And Dizzy, he's like, he knows that she can't do nothing with that knife. And he's going to need to defend him. He's never used a gun before. He's scared. He didn't know. And he goes outside and they're trying to get away. And when he's trying to get away, out of nowhere, another stranded guy gets, his dome pop. Boom, he just dies right in front of him. And the guy drops a hunting rifle. And Dizzy's like, he didn't know what to do, so he just, out of instinct, he picks it up and starts firing at grubs. He kills a few of them. And, he's just freaking out. And then he runs out of ammo. The guy, a guy next to him goes, here, reload, gives him the ammo. Dizzy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's trying to reload it. He's freaking out. He finally does it, and he keeps shooting, and he the locusts go away, they kill them all, whatever. He's just like really, stressed out, poor guy. He knows this isn't gonna be a good life, being like this. And unfortunately, 8 years later, his wife passes away due to an illness. She gets sick and she dies. He's just, living out like this, and he's really stressed out. He's like, my wife's gone, I have to take care of them. He doesn't know what to do, and he's drinking his moonshine really heavily, and his daughter tells him, no, don't drink it, you're gonna die. And he's like, don't worry about it, I'm not going anywhere. And he's just watching over his daughters, and everything's fine for a while, but out of nowhere, one night while they're sleeping, his daughter starts coughing really bad. and he's like, oh shit, my daughter, she's getting sick. She's getting the same sickness my wife's getting. And this is the part that honestly it got me teary-eyed when I was reading it. He's just like hugging his daughter, and he's rubbing her head. You can feel that she's hot. She's getting a really bad fever. And his other daughter, because it's Marilyn that gets sick, the first daughter, and his second daughter, Teresa, asks him, "Is Marilyn gonna die like mom?" And oh my god, when I read that part, that part got to me. It got me teary-eyed because it's just like, it's really sad. And he's like, "No, she's not gonna die. She's not gonna die like your mom." And he knows that the Cog have medicines and stuff that can help her. And this is when he hears about Operation Lifeboat. If you remember in Gears 2, it's when he got constricted, as he says. He goes, what does he say in Gears 2? He says, Daddy got the groceries, but he also got constricted, or something like that. Life is a bitch like that, or something. So he knew that the Cog could give him what he needed to save his daughter. So he went to them, told them, hey, my daughter's got this sickness, can you help her? The Cog, the soldier that he talked to said, yeah, we can, but we can't give it to you unless you fight for us. And Dizzy, at first, he was skeptical because he never wanted it, but, it's his daughter. So he's just like, I don't care, Help her, give her the medicine, I don't care what happens to me, just take care of him, give him a chance to live. And he does it, and he becomes a Cog, and that is the origin of Dizzy. That's how he became a Cog, because his wife died of a sickness, and he did not want the same thing to happen to his daughter. And that's where Operation Lifeboat came into place, and that's how he ended up in Gears 2. But anyways, I'm coming to the end here. If you guys like this video, please definitely like and subscribe. I want more viewers. I love doing these Gears of War lore videos. They're really fun to do, and I like to talk about the backstory of certain characters. If you guys have any ideas of who I should talk about next, or anything you want me to talk about, definitely leave any suggestions in the comments below. Hit that like button for Dizzy, guys. He's a great character. Thanks for watching.